My name is Jon-Erik Kellso, and I'd like to talk to you about the role of the trumpet or cornet in a traditional jazz band. And by traditional jazz band, I mean a New Orleans style jazz band, hot jazz that basically is the style that you hear in 20s and 30s style jazz bands. I love New Orleans. I go down there about once or twice a year, and I have for about 20 some years now, so it's a passion of mine, that style of music. Now the trumpet in this type of a jazz band, whether he is the leader of the band or not, is kind of the traffic cop. Or you could think of it as the quarterback. And when I say traffic cop, I mean he's directing traffic on the bandstand. Since most of the time these bands do not have written arrangements, and at most they might have lead sheets on the bandstand, so you're making arrangements up as you go along. And you're paying attention to one another and getting signals from one another. And usually the trumpet player is the one giving these signals. And that would include the order of solos, how many ensemble choruses you play in the beginning of the song, how many ensemble choruses at the end of the song, or maybe even ensembles in the middle. Also, you will be setting riffs and setting up send-off figures for, you can play 4 bars of an ensemble figure that you come up with on the spot that will set up a soloist and break things up. These are some of the ways to keep things interesting for the band and for the audience, so that it's not just one chorus of melody, one person takes a solo, next person takes a solo, next person takes a solo, one chorus of melody, and you stop. Because if you do everything that way, it gets pretty boring pretty quickly. Other ways that you, as the quarterback, calling the plays, calling the shots, can keep things interesting are by suggesting stop time choruses or asking for a stop time chorus where the rhythm section hits on the first beat of either every measure or every 2 measures, or even every 4 measures. There are variations on stop time where the rhythm section plays a Charleston beat, which is bop, 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 bop. Sometimes they'll do 4-1 as a stop time, so it'll be ba-dop, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, ba-dop, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So these are things you can kind of set up without even talking about it on the bandstand. You just get people's attention. You might have to yell something like stop time, but you can demonstrate with your horn to the rest of the band what you have in mind. Also, you'll be setting up background figures. Often it's the trumpet player that's in charge of coming up with background figures. These can be riffs or rhythmic figures to help push the rhythm along and keep things percolating. Or it can be long tones, whole notes, half notes that just give a little organ chord, as I've heard it referred to, behind a soloist to fill things in. And sometimes you do that just to help out the soloist if you think maybe he's not that sure about the harmony or the chord sequence of that song. Sometimes it helps just for him to hear the other horns laying out some of the leading tones behind him. That's kind of a nice thing to do. And it also just makes it sound fuller and more interesting. Now, when I say that the trumpet player is the traffic cop or the quarterback, these are things that are often expected of the trumpet player, but it's important to try not to step on anybody's toes, especially the band leader. So if you're not the band leader and you're the trumpet player, it's good to have an understanding with the leader of what role he expects you to take as far as these things go. You don't want to be telling the next soloist that he's next when the band leader is telling somebody else that he's the next soloist. So be sure that you have an understanding of which things you are in charge of. Being the trumpet player's job, playing the lead, that means you need to know the melodies to these songs and know how to play a clear lead that others can latch onto and play off of or harmonize with at times. I take it to heart that I should know the melodies, and I've spent a lot of time trying to build up a repertoire. So that means learning what is the standard repertoire of any given genre or band that you're playing with. You can do that by just going out and hearing a lot of bands, listening to recordings, talking to the band leader to know what songs he expects you to know, and then finding recordings to learn them from, or finding the sheet music. And you can do that online. I've found sheet music on eBay and in antique stores. And it's good to know the original melody. And then you can decide to phrase it how you want to. And often I've looked to the masters on recordings for inspiration. For learning melodies, often it's really a good idea to listen to a very straight commercial recording, just to hear the melody played straight, so you know what the real melody is. And that could be the Guy Lombardo Band, or it could be a singer from 1930 or 1940 that was just singing the song pretty straight. And it may sound strange to you as a jazz player, but that's a really good way just to learn the song. And you'll also hear the harmony that was original to the song, usually, in that way. And then listen to some hotter records, jazzier records for inspiration. Some of the singers that I could recommend from that era that you could listen to for inspiration would be Ethel Waters, Helen Forrest, Ella Fitzgerald. You can listen to the blues singers like Bessie Smith. Billie Holiday is great, but Billie often did not sing the melody straight, so don't necessarily learn the melody from Billie Holiday. You can learn a lot about feeling and interpretation from her, though. And there's countless great singers, Dinah Washington and Nat King Cole, Louis Armstrong, Jack Teagarden. These are some wonderful singers that can inspire you. And then there's a lot of great players to listen to get inspiration too. And if we're talking about New Orleans style trumpet and learning, getting inspiration about playing the lead in a jazz band, some of my favorites going back to the beginning of New Orleans jazz were King Oliver, Freddie Keppard, Louis Armstrong, Sidney DeParis, Tommy Ladnier. There's many of them. Just look for these great old recordings. Look for Louis' records, King Oliver's records. George Mitchell was the cornet player with Jelly Roll Morton's Red Hot Peppers. These are some great places to get ideas for how to interpret these songs.